Welcome, welcome. Ladies and gentlemen, my next guest hosts an amazing podcast on the EdReach Network on Mondays at 8:30, I believe it is?
8:45.
8:45, whenever people can get there, 8:45 Eastern Time. And I got to tell you, these are some of my favorite people to not only watch, not only listen to, but also communicate on Twitter. I want to bring in, I'll let you guys introduce yourself, starting down here with the beautiful, the lovely Miss Kat Flippin.
Sure. Hi. Again, Kat Flippin. Not very original with Twitter, at Kat Flippin. You know, you have a cool name, don't wear it out. And I am a former K-12 educator. I just started a new job at Georgia Gwinnett College as an EdTech specialist. So I made the leap from K-12 to higher ed.
Nice.
And good morning. My name is Kate Matthews at Georgia Tech Teach. And no, I do not work for Georgia Tech, although I do love Georgia Tech. But I have a daughter at UGA, but I'm currently lead district instructional technology specialist for Fayette County Public Schools and also teach for Kennesaw State in their instructional technology department for their online masters and EDS courses. So very busy. I think we all can attest to that, but I've always said, I'm not much on getting into research and digging in like Kat is. That's why I love her, one of the main reasons why I love her. But also I think that this has been my way to stay connected and to also have some really unique and wonderful opportunities to reach out and connect with other EdTech leaders.
And I am Jamie Vandergrift. I am an instructional technology consultant here in Atlanta. On Twitter, I am at Jamie Vanderg. All three of us, while they won't boast it, have some level of almost in terminal degree status. Kate has her EDS. Kat is in her dissertation state of her EDD, and I am working on my EDS. So we are very busy ladies. In addition to doing EduVue, we're quite busy. In fact, we're also members of EdTech Women Atlanta. And also, we work with the Georgia Educational Technology Conference, which is in November, and we stay very, very busy just being very connected in educational technology here in Atlanta.
And that is the one thing I admire about all of you. Every time I talk to you and I'm always calling, I'm like, I have this cobbler to make, I don't know, I need some recipes. I always call you guys and you're like, I have homework to do. Why is it important? I mean, we hear this term lifelong learner, but really, why is it important that educators keep going back and continue to improve their education? Is it just that we love to sit in front of webinars and do classes like that, Jamie?
No, I don't think that's the case at all. I think for us, I think what we have, and actually, we have a Birds of a Feather session Kat is leading that's going to be researchers in education. I think we all kind of can concur that there has to be some overlap between being researchers and practitioners, and we believe that there's a lot of value in that. So I think all of our choices are grounded in being the best practitioners we can be, but at the same time being very scholarly and knowing the research behind what we're doing. Long dramatic pause.
Long dramatic pause.
Just had a long day.
Think time.
I got to tell you though, and seriously, I mean, one of the best podcasts that are out there right now is EduVue, and you guys are live on Mondays. How did it happen? How did it come together? And what is the core behind EduVue?
You want me? You want to start?
Well, I was just going to say, I think Jamie just tapped into that a little bit. We all have very similar vision. We're very much involved, and it's our passion. We were actually at a conference, GAFE, Google Apps for Education Conference, a summit here in Atlanta. We did not know each other and basically found one another on Twitter. Stacia McFadden isn't here today, sadly. We miss you, Stacia. But she kind of led the way in building these connections, and then we clicked, and then that relationship started to form. And it's totally evolved from, just a professional ed tech to a friendship where we can also support one another when we're stressed out beyond measure. Mm-hmm. So.
And that doesn't happen very often when you're all constantly in school. Stress just doesn't work.
No, and working full time. No, not at all.
Yeah, you should have heard me when I was doing my qualifying exams. I think there were some shows, if you backtrack a couple months or so, where I was just a little stressed out. But you know what? You get support from these women. And that's what's very important. And, we honor the field. The difference between, not that apps and sites are awesome, but you want to couch that within pedagogical terms.
Yes.
You want to make it more meaningful to the classroom and to education, not so much like, hey kids, look at the new shiny thing I have. If you just do it once, they're never going to take it seriously. So we like to get in there, see how these things, technologically speaking, and also some movements that kind of cross the boundaries. We've talked about standards-based grading. We've talked about Common Core in a positive light. You know, we want every perspective and every point of view, and that actually not only, you know, enriches our roles as educators, and we actually all have, everybody is in a different role, so we can actually enrich each other that way too. But we hope that people who watch and people who participate, we love our back channel, we love our people. In fact, you don't see him, but Rodney is right there. Rodney Yee. And
he's our man.
We have people, we honor those relationships as well, because, you know, what is education but learning from each other? We are all students in this world, so, you know, let's collaborate. Let's be constructivist and not just sit by ourselves at a desk.
I think we speak true to ISTE standards too. I think that's been something that's been very powerful. Kat just touched on that, but to also stay true to the ISTE standards and to talk about that true transformative use of instructional technology, not just surface using tech for tech's sake, but truly getting that involved with the students and embedding instruction with technology.
How do we go about implementing those types of skills in our classrooms with our students?
Well, it depends on where you want to start. Do you want to start as you as an educator, or do you want to start from where the learner is coming from?
Start with where the students are coming from.
Amen.
You need to understand your student populace, and you have to understand that everybody is different. You know, I just read a book called Teachers and Machines, and I know Jamie read it too. It was part of our different programs by Larry Cuban, and a lot of what they're talking about, everything that's kind of introduced into school, is brought on by people who are not actually in the classroom. And no student perspective is in that book at all. So if a student is there and a student finds something completely irrelevant, how are they going to actually want to use it? So that's one of the reasons why, at least for me, I find technology very fascinating when it comes to instructing kids. Because you're reaching them. Right now, they're all part of the digital generation. And you're reaching them at their own level, and you're intriguing them with something that's interesting. And again, you're not using it just once, you're embedding it, you're showing them how to learn using the technology. So it's not just a digital literacy, it's a digital learning literacy. And they will take that on for the rest of their lives. They will be more intrigued with what you're doing and more interested. All this is so empowering. It makes the learning personalized, individualized, 24/7. There's tons of theoretical frameworks that surround that. If you ever are interested, you could read about Constructionism by Seymour Papert. It talks about, you know, not just having them create something that's personal to them, but it's also personal to the world they live in. So those kind of things, if you can start by understanding the student's perspective and how that applies to the pedagogy, then you find the tool that can reach to them, you will have an amazing classroom.
And it so often at times teachers are doing this backwards, right? They're trying to say, I have Twitter, how can I use it in my school? Versus saying, these are the kids that I have, what's going to work best for me? How do we globally change that? And is this a good place to start?
I think Kate's role is a really important one. I say that because a lot of what I'm especially doing in my program right now is critically assessing how we're doing professional learning for teachers. And there are several different philosophies on how we are taking this from a very research-based approach, or we're taking this from my approach. So I have knowledge, let me tell you what I know approach. So if I'm doing that to teachers, and we're not looking at the differentiation of teachers, and Kate has done a lot. She can talk about a lot of the way she's gamified, and I know she's going to do a session on that about how she's addressed the needs of her teachers. But if we're not showing them a better professional learning method, how can we expect they are going into classrooms and changing the way they teach? Because we are at this point saying, I am knowledgeable on iPads, let me teach you about iPads, which tells them to go into the classroom and say, well, I'm knowledgeable on this aspect, let me teach you about this. So we're not changing the way we deliver instruction to them, and we're not modeling for them what this should look like in the classroom.
And I feel very passionately about that. You know, when we go out from my district, when the professional learning, the people who are in my department are fantastic, and I handpicked them because I knew that they had the same frame of mind, and also they're very approachable. They have that piece as well. But to model for teachers what it is that they can do in the classroom and be device agnostic is, I think, critical. And I truly believe it has to start there, and research shows that as well.
Well, if you have the background, you don't have to always have the background in research. One of the things we're going to talk about is tomorrow, I think at 5:45, 5:30. You know, we're going to talk about how you don't have to come from, terminal higher degrees. You can incorporate research into your own classroom, but even if you don't want to come from that perspective, or if you want to, or you want to model it for the teachers. So, something that really influenced me to continue on and get actually my doctorate, never thought I would. I was at Mill Creek High School in Gwinnett County Public Schools. There was one professional development leader there. Her name is Dr. Vicki Husby, who said, everybody, here's how you do action research. I had no idea how to do it in the first place. She modeled it for us. She actually used us as her subjects to apply interventions to, and it was fantastic. So, I'm writing my dissertation on gamification. How am I going to go and show other teachers, well, I'm going to build this giant framework on gamification. Hey, by the way, go read this, sit and get kind of session. Wouldn't it be cool if I just gamify professional learning? And they're like, oh, so this is how it works. Yeah. That's how you start incorporating that for teachers. That's how you start making that paradigm shift. And of course, social media plays a giant role. Once you have that, if you can somehow incite for them that click, that, oh, I have 1,000, maybe hundreds of thousands of people in my back pocket that I can reach out to. That starts the ball rolling for them to understand how to do these things in the classroom, what they could do. It expands their worlds to endless possibilities. So we're very passionate about this.
Yes, we are.
We are a little bit.
And it's really nice to see that you guys are all working together. And one of the things that you mentioned that you're a part of is a group called the Women of EdTech Atlanta. Did I get that right?
Close.
Help me out with this one.
EdTech Women Atlanta.
EdTech Women Atlanta. Tell us a little bit about that. Tomorrow we're going to be interviewing some of the members of EdTech Women. And tell us a little bit about the stuff that you're doing here in Atlanta.
Sure. We just had a kickoff event, actually. We were really excited for ISTE coming to Atlanta. And the kickoff event had kind of been, I think, several months, really, in the planning. And our essential goal for EdTech Women Atlanta, while we are part of the national organization of EdTech Women, I think every city will look a little bit different. And what we want Atlanta to look like is a very inclusive group of women. And the amazing thing about our kickoff event was we had K-12, we had higher ed, we had a graduate student from Auburn University.
A couple. And there was another one too, I think, from Georgia State.
It was just this amazing, we had EdTech policy people there.
We had State Department representatives from the Georgia Virtual School.
Yes, it was just this amazing, very broad vision of what our mission is. And so we want that for EdTech Women Atlanta. We want a very broad perspective. We want to see other perspectives. We want to talk, we don't have any ed policy background, so to talk to someone in educational policy was fabulous. And so for us, we really want to open up the doors to have bigger discussions, to understand more about what's going on that we may not have experience in. And to bring in graduate students was just amazing. These are women who are getting ready to head out into their careers, and they wanted to be a part of something like this. And so, we're excited. We want to expand, and we'll actually be doing some small mini events at a couple conferences that we'll have here in Georgia. We'll be at GAETC doing a little meet and greet, and at the West Georgia RISA Technology Conference, also doing a little meet and greet. So we hope to bring in a good variety of women that really bring in different aspects.
Right.
How do we get in? How do people get involved?
You
Live.
can. We actually do appreciate men. We don't say it's exclusively a woman thing. Men are welcome.
I think that's an awesome thing.
Yeah.
Do you guys? There's a chat box coming in here. Are you against or for puppets in education?
Well,
again, I think when it's developmentally and pedagogically appropriate.
I know. I think that might be blended learning. Sure. I think that works.
Face to face.
Yeah.
Very, very, very cool. So what is it like? I mean, I'm looking forward to next year with ISTE being in Philadelphia.
Yes,
sure.
I already have it marked on my calendar. Jamie, I know you had a calendar issue. I saw a picture of you standing outside here like a month ago, right? Last week.
Right.
So what is it like? I mean, does this feel like home for you? Is this like, do you feel like the host of this thing? I mean, because this is all native for you guys here.
A bit. I know. I think we were even trying to get, who was it we were trying to get to stay with us last year, and we were joking with him because he didn't know if he could come, and then, who was it?
I don't know.
iPad Sammy. It was John Samuelson, and so we were kidding with him, but no, we do feel, I think, that this is home and very welcoming, and it's just, we're very proud.
And there's actually over 300 teachers from Gwinnett County Public Schools attending, and almost over 2/3 of those teachers are new to ISTE. There was a huge movement particularly within public schools within the Metro Atlanta area. And Metro Atlanta, by the way, is a giant entity that are coming for the first time. And we're actually informally getting together with them. We're trying to get them more interested and involved, and we're hoping that, we can make this a lifelong thing for them and they can keep on coming. Particularly if our county might actually support that. I think that's brilliant. So it's good to have a local base, particularly when you live at Hartsfield and flying out to other ISTEs is not so difficult.
It's true.
And I noticed that on the calendar tonight there's a Katy Perry concert across the hall.
Oh, I didn't know that at all.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, well.
I was overhearing some of the security guards talking about all the wonderfulnesses that's going to be happening tonight with all the traffic going
Very
on.
nice.
Speaking of being a connected educator,
Oh my gosh, Katy Perry.
as all
I'm
connected
so
educators
surprised.
would. Yesterday at Hack Dead, I had a chance to sit in on this session on gamification.
Oh.
And I wanted to hit this topic because as an orchestra teacher, some of these topics are a bit foreign. So I have to ask the questions like, how do you gamify, especially in a situation where you're in a performance base? If anybody wants to take on that one.
Oh, yes. Actually, well, here's something that, again, I'm not just a former Spanish teacher. I'm also a former music teacher. I taught music technology and music history, and I helped out with chorus and all kinds of fun stuff.
She's also a classically trained musician.
No, I'm not going to sing. I'm so sorry. Maybe if there is an ISTE theme song, I will sing it.
I believe karaoke's tomorrow night.
We can write it, and then you can sing it.
Yes, definitely. I think that'd be hilarious.
That would be great.
So for gamification, the key is, and again, you can read my dissertation once it comes out in a year. You need to take it from the small pieces up. So you need to understand first the game mechanics. You need to say, what all is it? It's not just badges and it's not just points. There are actually a whole slew of 20 or more types of game mechanics, the little pieces of things that come from games, because gamification is using game-like elements in a non-game environment. You need to use those more than just 2 or 3, and not that I'm saying that people who use 1 or 2 things are not necessarily gamifying the classroom, but if you want a really truly in-depth experience with it, you need to start from those little pieces and then work your way up, embed those into the curriculum. I have found that particularly quest-based learning, it's like it's completion activities, it's mastery learning. So like if you're an orchestra, you're going to say, okay, I want your next quest is to master the B sharp scale, and then you're going to go from, they're going to try it over and over and over again, and they can keep on going back until they finish it, and then they can move on to the next part, and they get some sort of extrinsic reward. But you also want to have the intrinsic stuff. You want the community, you want the collaboration, you want people to work together for some activities. You want some sort of, background, informal community practice going on. Those kind of things, if you can embed the extrinsic and the intrinsic together, is a brilliant combination, and you can do that in literally any subject. If you don't believe me, contact me. I'll do it for you.
And I think that's a great point about game mechanics. I know a lot of my misconceptions initially with trying to gamify professional learning was just to assign points, and they were good.
Yes.
And granted, they did enjoy it. And the main thing was the teachers were up and active and moving around, and it was just a natural collaborative experience. Mm-hmm. However, I know in my presentation on Tuesday, Gamification of Professional Learning, I talk about game mechanics and just taking those small pieces at first, just as Kat mentioned, so that you can ensure true engagement with the students.
How do you set this up? I mean, coming from somebody who's never done this before, do you just go in on day one and say, okay, we're going to now assign points for your behavior?
No.
How does this culture start?
No, there is so much work to go in ahead of time. It is a front-loaded activity. You have to put in the work, but the beautiful thing is, once the work is done, you have it forever. You also need to not necessarily walk in on day one and say, guess what, class? We are going to gamify. They will not take you very seriously. They won't. You don't want to tell them a thing. Don't even say any words. And in fact, when it comes to professional learning and something that I'm interested in studying, is you don't actually want to use any game terminology at all, because they're not going to understand. If they don't play games, they're going to be like, what are you talking about? XP? What the heck is that? So you want to put it in their terminology context. Don't tell them what's going on. Just do it. Eventually they'll catch on, and then they'll be like, oh, that's really cool. But front-loaded, change the terminology, don't say a word.
And what do you say to the parents when you say that you're going to give points out, and how do you handle all those kind of communications?
Well, when I did my Spanish 4, I gamified Spanish 4 for an entire semester, spring semester. I just had a little one sheet for my parents, and I just said, hey, by the way, this is how I'm going to present the curriculum. Didn't use the terminology. I just said that we're going to set it up in completion activities where they're going to try to do mastery. Once they master something, and they tied it to standards, they mastered this, they can move on to the next standard, and so on and so forth. Particularly if you're in Common Core, that's ideal for you.
One of the big topics that is still around right now is backchanneling.
Yes.
Can you explain a little bit of backchanneling, and why is that important in the classroom these days?
Well, I think the reality is that we are no longer focused on this four walls concept. If we are looking at global learning, we have to understand that the learning that's happening in our classroom, while wonderful, is one element. If you just connect one classroom to the classroom down the hall, you've already expanded your learning. But when you start to look at it in terms of, I can connect my classroom to a classroom in Australia, and we can compare and contrast our environments. We can talk about really important things that are happening there in government, important things that are happening here in government. We're going far beyond just our due diligence to teach our standards. We're building global citizens. But the bigger part of backchanneling and any kind of global learning is that we have to have that embedded digital citizenship conversation going on. We have to be talking to them about the safety and security of that, because when we connect children to other places in the world, it is incredibly important for them to understand their role as digital citizens and the concerns with digital citizenship. So it's incredibly important, but there's an extreme foundation that has to be put down before you're able to truly to do that. And additionally, being a very active part of that with your students is incredibly critical.
How do we start this in our buildings? I mean, it's one thing to go into your parents and say, we're going to gamify, with or without the terms.
Right.
But to go into your principal and say, I was just at ISTE, I have this great idea, can I? What are some suggestions that you can give educators out there? Because, I mean, we're talking about backchanneling.
Right.
The hashtag not at ISTE 14 is exploding right now. so
happy to hear
backchanneling
that.
is happening right now.
Yes.
But how do we take these ideas and go back and not feel odd or left out, or, you know, you can be a rock star in an ed camp, but when you go back to your room, you're just one of the other teachers and, you know, march and file in line. What do we do here? Because we all want to push the envelope, but sometimes pushing the envelope leads to not good things in our buildings.
Yeah.
Connect.
Yeah.
Connect.
I mean,
Find people on Twitter.
Yeah.
Find people on Google+.
Yeah, that's one aspect, definitely. And that helps you feel way less isolated. I think that
Right.
actually has helped us. It's so nice that, you know, again, Atlanta being this huge 150 kind of mile span, I live on way one side, and I actually never see these girls at all.
We only see each other.
We
and
live like,
hang out.
what, 15 minutes from each
Right.
other? We don't
see each other.
So that is really important, and that's also locally. If you can connect locally, that's also very empowering. So, like, you know, if Kate's doing some kind of gamifying, I'm doing gamifying, we can compare notes and say, by the way, this person in Fayette County is also doing it, and that county, your district will be, oh, really? Another school? Also, it depends on your audience. If you are trying to convince teachers, don't tell them, show them. If you're trying to convince parents, give them a little bit of kind of popular literature behind it and talk them through it. If you're trying to convince administrators, if you're trying to convince your principal, district leaders, you need to have a proposal, write it down, find some of the background research. You will be surprised if you can present them with some research or some leaders in the field who can write something up for you and share that with you. You'd be surprised at how convinced they'll be, because few teachers will ever think of doing that.
And get a buddy to go in on it with you,
Yeah.
and have a technology night where you bring the parents in and model for the parents what it is that you're doing. I mean, there is nothing that will help them understand better than for them to actually go through the process. You know, they can read all the paperwork in the world, but until they actually experience it, you know, that's totally different.
Well, and I think also ISTE, you leave and you are like bubbling. With like,
Yes.
I can study, I have this, I can do this, and I can do this, and I can do this, and then you go back to an entire environment where no one was at ISTE. And it can pop your balloon incredibly fast. So I think everything that they said is important, because if you aren't ready for that transition back into an environment where people haven't felt this energy and haven't been energized in this way, that you quickly just kind of deflate from seeing that others around you can embrace this excitement. So I think, you know, everything that they said is really, really important, and preparing yourself for when I get there, people that were not at ISTE are not going to see it the way I do.
Oh, yes.
I mean, should we prepare to not take the full jump? I mean, you know, one of the things that we hear a lot at an unconference is we're learning all these great things, but my school doesn't have Wi-Fi.
Right.
I mean, and you know, we're not talking necessarily that extreme, but I mean, if you go into a gamification workshop here at ISTE, and you come out with all these great tools, sometimes it is difficult to implement all of those, even though you can as a teacher.
Right.
You don't want to rock that boat and be the outsider suddenly in your school district that's being progressive, I guess might be the word.
Well, and you know, there are offline tools too that can be used. I know that's a definite issue. And another thing to kind of add on to what Jamie was saying, patience. You have to be patient. This is not something that people go home in one night and it changes their mind forever. You have to be patient about how long it takes, and I always refer to turning a battleship around, because that's what I felt like I'm trying to do as a district leader. But it's happening. It's happening one little pocket at a time, but then it catches on like wildfire. And to go back, Jeff, to what you were just saying, you know, it is a scary thing for a lot of people, and this is something that most people get really excited about, but then they end up dropping it because they're terrified. But if you reach out and you get connected, it'll help tremendously.
You know, one of the topics that we've talked to many of our guests on today is this concept of going from college into the professional workplace and then getting your eyes open. And right now, and I know she's watching out there, but I want to give a shout out to Lisa Dabbs, who does some amazing work with new teacher chat.
Yep.
And she's amazing. She does. I mean, she's changing education right now, and I'm not just saying that, but she's doing some amazing things for new teachers. So I'm curious to know, how do we help those new teachers out? I mean, there's a lot of. I mean, I couldn't imagine right now coming out of college and then suddenly being smacked in the face with Twitter and gaming and.
Yeah.
But you don't want them to go 3 years in and then you know. How do we do this? Lisa, help us out on the hashtag, not at ISTE14. But how do we do this?
Well, and if I could just really quickly say, if you are thinking about going into education today and you have any interest in any of the topics that we talk about, or anything that's really transformative for education, you need to look long and hard at your college picks. You need to select programs that are very well matched with what we're talking about. Because if you go into a program that's teaching the same way they've always taught year after year, and I know I teach for higher ed too, so I can attest to this. Now I'm finally seeing some courses that are coming out that are focused on pedagogy and andragogy, you know, how to teach adults, and that's critical.
Yes, definitely. And here's the funny thing that I've discovered. The way you feel as a new teacher, you remember when you left your pre-service program, you walked into the classroom for that very first time, and you were excited, and then holy crap. It's nothing. Pre-service does not prepare you at all for the classroom. Would you be surprised if I told you that teachers in the 1930s felt the exact same way when they were being thrown the radio and film at them?
Yeah, but for the record, they were teaching in black and white.
Sure. Black and white.
This is before, you know.
That's true, but it's a common thing. So how can we solve that problem? It's been going on for, you know, since the beginning, since 100 years ago. how can we solve the problem? You want better mentorship programs. You do want better pre-service programs. If you don't have a good pre-service program, you get in the classroom, you're overwhelmed.
Yes.
You've got to have that mentorship program. If you can get paired up with ideally not just one person, because you never know if you don't fit or whatnot. You want 2 or 3 people. You want a mentorship team who can be there when you need them. One person might not always be able to be there. A team will definitely help you. So schools need to develop better mentorship programs. I've never been in a school that really had a very strong mentorship program, and I think that is possibly one of the biggest reasons why we have such huge turnover of young teachers.
Well, Lisa's done a great job
Yes.
with NT Chat for those teachers that are finding they don't have mentors.
Yeah.
NT Chat is a great place for them.
Well, you mentioned mentors, and I remember my first year being put with somebody, and you don't have a choice sometimes, for good or for bad.
Right.
Yes.
My mentor was a nightmare.
And I sometimes see new teachers, and I especially love when we get student teachers in, because I just want to grab them and go, have you seen this?
Yes.
And
They haven't.
but then I always feel like I'm the guy who's, have you seen this new radical outside thing called, online communication? And everyone's like, don't talk to him about this. He's got work to do. And I'm like, what are we doing?
Right.
Yes, exactly.
So is it the job of the teacher to reach out for the mentorship, or is it the job of the teacher to go, okay, that person's new. I might not be the official mentor on record of, but I want to help out.
I think right now we need to reach out to them.
I agree.
Because again, you don't have the programs, you don't have the momentum, we don't have those, we don't naturally have anybody telling us you need to do this. In order to make a change, you have to instigate it. So if we're going to make this change, we're going to help these new teachers, you need to be the one to step forward and say, hey, I can help you. Okay, so yeah, you really, 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 really like something I don't like at all. I'm trying to think what I don't like.
Pinterest.
Yes,
Augmented
Pinterest.
reality.
Augmented reality or Pinterest. Oh, I have a story about that in a little bit. But yes, I'm not a very big fan of Pinterest. In fact, it was Lisa Dabbs who told me that I was wrong.
Well,
But,
you can be wrong about
and
one
if somebody
thing.
walks in and they're a new teacher, like, I love Pinterest and education, I'm going to say, you're a new teacher, I will support you, and I won't take it upon myself to dissuade you from that decision. We might be different, but I can still help you in other means. So that's what I believe.
I have to ask, what do you have against Pinterest?
Oh, gosh.
Oh, don't get her started. Oh.
I've got
okay.
the mic going.
Well, you have Instagram, you have Twitter. When you're an educator and you are as busy as we are, you do not need to. I know. You need to not overwhelm yourself.
For the record, I love Pinterest. Just
Yeah,
saying,
they all do.
Pinterest.
They all
We're
do.
big fans.
But it's just too much. It is too much. I see it as a good curation tool if you don't already have another curation tool. For me, I use Tumblr because it's easier to share. And something that really ticks me off is you go to Pinterest, you click on the link, then you have to click on another link to go to the link. It kind of is a little backwards for me like that, but I need something that's just as easy to use as Twitter and Instagram, which are my two big things. And I limit myself in my social media on purpose so I can really make that enriched for me. I don't want to spread myself too wide and then get burnt out.
Let me ask you a last topic here about digital portfolios, digital curation. Very, very fortunate to be in a position where people contact me and say, I need help with tech support, things
Right.
like that. I find that a lot of my tech support calls come from Iowa. Stop there. Why is it for teachers to create digital portfolios?
It's your footprint. It's a track record. You know that whole footprints in the sand, your footprints disappear. I
Right.
never want my footprints to disappear. I want to go back and see the things that I wrote back when I started teaching. I want to go back and see my growth. And maybe I can actually use that in a mentorship program, right? You could share that with other people. And it's fun if I could say, hey, Jamie, look at this website I made in 2000. It was GeoCities, and I just kept a copy of it.
No, but with the idea that you are creating something to put out for content,
Yes.
and you'd be surprised at how many educators, professional public speakers, people who for a living get up and talk about themselves still have the idea of, oh, nobody wants to hear what I have to say.
That's a shame.
How do we get them by that stuff? Because I'll tell you, and people out there can attest, my first 50 episodes of the show is not my last 50 episodes of the show. And you have to understand that,
Same way. Yeah.
the first couple things that you do is it's beta processing, it's version 1.
Right.
But yeah, you're putting it out there for the world to see.
Right.
Well, they might be afraid for two reasons. Back me up if I'm wrong. One, they're afraid of people copying their work, right?
Sure.
And two, actually take it back, maybe three reasons. Two, they feel like they don't have the time. Maybe they're really busy. They don't know how to start. Getting that impetus to start is kind of difficult. And three, maybe they just don't feel like it's important if they just go out and speak, and maybe they get paid for that, and they don't want to have to do something free. So it's just a matter of finding that motivation. You know, there's a part of I'm about to go geeky. Pardon me. There's a part of motivational theory when it comes to behaviorism. Hush. There's this guy named Fogg, and he has his 3 motivators. You have to, in order for someone to do a behavior, you need to have the motivation to do it, the purpose to do it, and you need to have a trigger. And I really do believe for people, and particularly educators who are busy, to do something, you need to have those 3 aspects. So these people have the purpose. Maybe they have a motivation, but what would be the trigger?
And I apologize, I was checking my notes. I just returned from a conference. But another thing that everybody needs to start really preparing for is Web 3.0,
yes,
which is the
definitely
anticipatory web, where you can literally go online and search for anyone, and it will crawl the web and pull up anything you've ever said online, anything, even if you've deleted it. You know, anticipatory Web 3.0 is going to be huge. And I think we're just seeing the tip of the iceberg. And if you don't start to curate your own portfolio,
your identity, right?
Yes, or your identity, then you truly, I think, will regret it.
So you're saying it's a bad idea that my Edu triplets have tons of photos online?
Actually, no, I don't.
No.
How come?
I don't.
I don't pin them, by the way.
Oh no.
Oh, good.
This is
We're
like
glad.
a running theme of my life right now. I think that if you can go ahead and help your kids, like
Yes.
we all have kids of varying ages. I want to go ahead and get a domain for both my girls. They're only 8 months and 2.5 years old, but I'm going to get a domain for them. I'm going to go ahead and make sure that whatever I put out there, I have censored, and I have controlled it, and I know that it's there. So one day when they get down the road, and I'm anticipating that more is going to happen on the internet than we can even fathom right now.
right.
And all this stuff is going to be on there. I want to make sure it's good stuff. It's stuff that can't be used against them. I want to go ahead and be their digital citizenship monitor until they take it over themselves.
Yes. Yes.
And when they go on there won't be anything that's inappropriate. So, like, I don't do back time pictures. I don't do anything like that.
I have pictures of my kids sitting next to a computer with a diaper on the computer. Is that
That's
inappropriate?
hilarious. No, that's hilarious.
That's
fine.
okay?
That's fine.
There's a difference between humor and inappropriate.
Yes.
So you're good.
Well, I think I take a very different stance.
No, that's okay.
That's good, because I always call it, Jamie, should I be doing this with my kids?
No, I think as a parent, you decide what you do with your kids. As teachers, you have to be mindful of what your parents are okay with you doing with your kids. If you
yes.
Google me
Parent
and you
education.
find a picture of my kids, let me know. Because I work incredibly hard that if you Google Jamie Vandergrift and you check images, that you will not ever see a picture of my husband, you will not ever see a picture of my kids. And I do that because I am so socially connected that, first of all, I might make a couple enemies along the way. So if Jeff gets mad at me one day, right?
There was that time.
Yeah, there was that once. I want to make sure that whatever I'm doing is about me and not about them. But that to me is very much, every parent has to make that decision for their kids. And I know that you aren't certainly putting them out there for willy-nilly. You're going to protect their digital footprint.
No, I'm putting them out there for Craig Yen.
Well, and I'm the only one here that has 2 teenage daughters, so please pray for me. And I have to tell you, there is a point in time where you have no control.
Right.
Like, they are out there, and I have taken away privileges. I always have passwords, but I am not stupid. I realized that they could go and create an account I'd never know about. But it all begins with education.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
That is
You've
fine. I
got
wanna
to
support Jeff.
teach your child that this is inappropriate,
Yes.
and a college will look at this. I know the first thing I told my daughter to do when she went to apply for college is, I said, well, girlfriend, you better go delete your Twitter account. So,
I got a chance to speak at a college once, and somebody said that. They're like, my teacher just told me to completely delete my Facebook page because I'm now going out for jobs. And I'm like, what are you talking about? This is when you need to have the Facebook already lined up with all of your
Exactly.
positive stuff.
yes,
Right.
And this is
exactly.
why these things are important to you. Like, you need to have that digital, So, we're talking to these college kids about digital citizenship. No, I got to have it with this 13-year-olds.
Right.
Before these things start.
Amen.
Yeah.
Yes.
Here's the thing, and here's the question that's at the root of all of this.
Uh-oh.
What's the border between personal and private online? Jeff is probably a lot more like me. For me, this is my life. I am very passionate about this. I have jumped into it. And so my border between personal and private is a little bit skewed, and that's okay. It's not as solid as some other people's, and that's fine. It's whatever you're most comfortable with. But my question is, eventually, how much of that line will get blurred for everybody?
Right.
So, I mean, for some of us that live this, it's going to. I have pictures of my kids. They're really cute. They're on my Twitter feed. It's okay. But right now, it's just whatever you are most comfortable with, and don't let it hinder you from doing any of this.
And I think that's a good advice. I mean, I always tell people, this aside, I do consider myself a very private individual.
Yeah.
There's a lot of stuff that doesn't,
Right.
you pick through the 1,000 photos. It's easy these days to take 1,000 photos of your
Yes.
kids, right?
Yes.
But I do pick the one
Yes, me too.
that you then release, because you don't want to be the guy who's not putting things on. Look,
Right.
we're competing with everybody else who's got twins and triplets right now.
Well,
So but knowing where to put out there, knowing where
Right.
that line is, but also knowing that eventually those are going to get shown by us to his prom date,
Yes. That works.
right?
Well, and educate yourself about your device or your phone. Make sure that your photos aren't being geolocated or geotagged. Ensure that you go in and make your device private. I think that's a good way to safeguard against it as well.
Definitely. I like the photos not being geotagged, but how many people, Jamie, did you check in on Foursquare here?
Well, she's live on camera. People know where she is.
True, yeah.
Okay,
See?
look, I just offended my perspective. Leave me alone.
Me
that's
and
a
like
good
hundreds
point.
of other people.
That's a really, really good point.
Okay. Guys, I want to say thank you so much for spending the time with us. If you haven't gotten a chance to watch them, EduVue is a great podcast. I believe it's the 4th best podcast out there for educators. I gotta say,
I'll take it.
4th.
Yeah, well,
I like it. I like a number, actually.
I mean, Craig still watches
Top 5.
it. It's good.
Yes.
Tell us a
actually,
little bit about
Craig's
where
been
we
in
can find more information about EduVue.
Sure. Well, primarily, I would think the hashtag is probably the first place to go. Just hashtag EduVue.
Yes.
Which, by the way, my phone has been going off constantly.
I know, mine has too.
I am so excited to go and interact with you guys. Something that we really honor are people
Yes.
connecting with us via the hashtag. We also we're building a website. As soon as we can get through ISTE, it will be live. And so that will be there as well. Domain to be announced. And of course, we're on the EdReach network. You can find us under their channels. And we are on iTunes as well as EduVue. Anywhere else I missed?
Not
Google
Pinterest.
Google Plus. Google
Not
Plus.
on Pinterest. You won't find us
Google
there.
Plus. Google
Actually, I started a board with our episodes, but Kat put the smack down.
Very, very nice. Ladies and gentlemen, the ladies from the EduVue Podcast.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Everyone.